So I'm going to record now, and then when I'm done, this will drop it out, and I'll put it on Zoom or onto a video, onto YouTube, and that's how you get your the updates in that. The reason I love this tool is, first of all, it's free. You can talk to as many people as you would like for 40 minutes before it shuts you off. If you have one-to-one, like if just Sean Ray and I are talking, we can talk for 8 hours. It wouldn't matter. It lets you go forever. So if you happen to have a student in your class or doing a training with someone who happens to not be able to be on site that day, you can use this as a way to connect with them, and it can go all day long. You can record the whole thing too. It just gives you a pretty big file. What you're able to do though with it, the other real fantastic fun things for it, give me 1 second here. I'm moving it down so I can reach it. If you go on the bottom where it says share screen, there's a little green box with an arrow. And with that green box with an arrow, I'm going to connect it to the, first of all, to the, my Firefox. So you can see what I'm going on here. You can be recording this. You can create a screencast of doing anything to show people how to do things, to talk through a PowerPoint, anything like that. What I like about it best is you don't have to actually be talking to anybody. This can be a free screencast tool that lives on that works on your computer, that as long as you have connection to the internet so you can hook up to Zoom, well, you have it downloaded on your computer, you have connection to the internet to download it to your computer, you can use it as a screencasting tool. So then I could show you whatever's on here that, you know, we wanted to talk about, whatever. I can annotate by pointing. I could do the spotlight. And you can see, like, look, this guy's skateboarding. Okay, we can draw on it. I can pencil draw as well. I'm just gonna, I can do these with this. I can mark it up. All these different things. And I could also save this or erase it. And I can also give control of my computer to someone else who wants to be brave and do that. Okay, Gwen's gonna do it. So she's gonna go up to, I'm gonna give it to you right now. All right, move the mouse. That's Gwen. My hands are here. Okay, so if you happen to have a student who does not have any idea what they're doing, or they're having some trouble on their computer, and they're like, you know, I can't make it turn it in, you could actually get on their computer and take remote control access of it and do that. So you can take it back. I can go to stop share. Okay, and then I can take it back. So it's not like they can get into your screen forever, but that allows you to do a lot of really cool things that other things do not allow you to do for free. That's the reason why I like this over Hangouts. Here's my reasons why. The affordances of the tool. Hangouts is a really easy, popular one to use. I have trouble recording it, and I also have trouble with its stability, the stability of it. It keeps kicking people off and not letting them on. Skype is a really great tool as well. It is free, and you can send files. That's the big benefit over this one. That's the affordance that Skype has that Zoom doesn't. But not a problem. So Skype, you can send files, and this one you can't, but being able to give over your control like that, I think is pretty fantastic. So there we go, a couple of affordances of the tool. The other, let me think if there's anything else really that really needs to be told. I don't think so. Those are the big fun things. Yeah, Google Hangouts, Google products at all is restricted in a lot of schools. This one works pretty well most of the time whenever they allow you access, but you do have to sometimes clear it with your IT people if you're working in a school district that's locked down. I had a student last year who worked for the government, and she had no access to anything online in school or in work because they were a cybersecurity branch of the government. And so, you know, anything we did for this thing, she did it for like Girl Scouts because there was nothing she had access to within the school. All right, so with that being said, Last week we did QR codes and augmented. Oh, anybody have a question or comment about Zoom?
Pretty nice.
Yeah, free. Like I've said to people, numerous people before, if I tell you to use something and it doesn't, if it's not free, ooh, we got feedback. If I tell you to use something and it's not free, let me know, because it was free when I recommended it. Because I've been in a school district before. It doesn't matter if you can afford to pay for it. You know, usually you only have so many kids or whatever, and there's always a problem if it has to be a pay for it. I'm going to actually take roll right now. I'm going to take a screenshot of this so you'll hear that. There we go. So we've taken roll for this now, and sorry, I also have a cold. Last week we talked about we looked at augmented reality, and we looked at QR codes and Erasmus. For those of you that posted things that do not have your username with your Erasmus auras, if you don't post your username, nobody can see your stuff. Okay, so you need to make sure it's set to public, which should be the default, and then you need to make sure that you post your username so people can follow you, and then they are able to see your auras. If you use QR codes, it should be just used as it goes.
Dr. Jen?
Yes.
If it is set for private and you do supply or provide the username, would they still be able to see it even though it's set for private?
No, if you could set it for public just for a week or so till people can see it, that would be great.
How do you go back and reset it if it's set for private? Because that's one of the things I was trying to see.
Okay, hold on. And we'll do it this way. All right, so when you get on here, and if I can remember how to log into my account, I never shut down my computer so everything stays logged in, and then I have these things like today when I have to crash it a couple times, and that does not help. Okay, so once you have your R's already built, and you come into here and you want to edit them. I'm gonna have to sneeze here in a minute here. That's a really good question. I thought it was right.
I think if you go into edit, because I had that problem too. If you go into edit, you can say like whether you want to share it or like.
All right, I missed the button.
Yeah.
Interchange. No. That's why I thought it was right.
If you continue clicking next, you'll have an option to unshare, and I think if you unshare it and then reshare, it should become public.
Okay. I apologize for that. I thought there used to be a place on here, like there was a little button right here that you could also make it.
And I think if you click share now, it should become public.
Yep, people can now find and view it. Okay, that's how you do it then. You'll go in, for all of you that didn't catch that, you'll go into edit, click through, then you get to here, you hit unshare, that turns it off. If it already says share, then you're good. If it says unshare, then I'm sorry. Right now it is public. If I click unshare, it will be private. If I go back through and I click it so that it's shared, and this says unshare again, then it would be, then it would be able to be used again or be public again. If it says unshare, that means it's public. If it says share, it means it's private. All right.
That's a cool idea that you did your office plate as a aura.
I was desperate the first day that I was trying this. I was like, what can I use? So I was looking for anything that was on my phone. Any other questions about using this? I will say the new HP Reveal is much better. It used to be if you did your auras on a phone, you couldn't share them. Like they were yours and yours alone. And then people would do all that work and it would be unable to be shared. They'd have to like screenshot it all and try and post it so that you could see what they were doing. So the HP Reveal works a lot better. They do have a couple of the glitches fixed, but Some people were asking also how to do URLs so that they could do a video, something like that. If you have a YouTube video to use, it's pretty easy. When you go back, when you're in your overlay, you go to add action. And from add action, you're able to load a URL. And when you load the URL, you paste it into here. And that will allow you to load a YouTube video. It's an extra step, sort of. You can do a video of your own straight from the trigger image, but it's a little harder and you don't get very much space. The other thing is too, if you don't want to use YouTube, like if your school blocks YouTube or your business blocks YouTube, you can, and they let you have Google, you can load it into your Google Drive or a Dropbox and you can share it that way, because your Google Drive also has a URL available. So your Google Drive also has a URL available that if you were to come into here and let's say that, you know, you want to see my Central Talk notes for today. If I wanted to list this, I would go and highlight it. And when I go to the shareable link, I can use that link to hook to any URL that I want to use in there. So if you don't have something on YouTube or on a web file, it's in your own personal files in like a Drive or in Dropbox, you can share it that way too. Because once you get your shareable link, copy it, and then you would just paste it in under Add Options. And that adds that in as well. So when you double tap it, and you could share it here, and then you see the three arrows that happen, or the three overlays with the triggers on it that are there. Okay, any questions on your asthma or on using that, or sorry, anything like that from last week? Anything else from last week that needs to be, okay. I will say this week you were supposed to do coding this week, and then next week you were supposed to do the evaluations. I apologize. We got ready to start prepping the coding thing, and the one that I had people using last year for a real simple, easy coding experience for something makes you pay for it, and then the other one that I had on there as a secondary suggestion is no longer in use. So I really quickly emailed a bunch of my friends that do a lot more coding than I do, and we're working on a replacement for you. You'll have something next week to be doing that. Hopefully, now that this talk is over, hopefully tomorrow night I'll get that posted for you guys, in case for those of you that are working early. I know there's a couple of you that are under time constraints at the end of the semester, so I'll have that up there. And it's pretty simple coding. It's a lot of drag and drop. It's nothing very difficult. So those of you that are not feeling too tech savvy, don't panic. I promise. This week then we are looking at, this week then we are looking at evaluation. So what I want to ask you is, how do you folks evaluate things in your classroom? Do you use paper and pencil tests? Do you use projects? What kind of things do you use for evaluation? Doesn't have to be tech oriented.
We do written quizzes, and then we also do, like, our two main forms are written quizzes and then playing quizzes. So they go home on their phone, they upload like themselves playing their instrument, and they upload that video into Google Classroom. So those are our main two.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah,
So I teach third. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I do the same thing that Josh does with recordings with my kids playing Google Classroom. And if you've never used Doctopus and Grubric, yeah.
Yes.
That's what I do, man.
Well, I was just going to say, in third grade, don't really do grades, but our school is like a lot of self-evaluation. So our kids, in order to assess them, we just kind of do like 1, 2, 3. And then I just have to write it on their desk of like where they are after each lesson, and I can go around kind of as quickly as them that way.
I sometimes use Plickers for things like that, according to whatever the particular lesson is. Sometimes it's a really quick way to just kind of see where people are, because it gives you that little thing on the screen where you can kind of see how many greens you have for a particular question, how many reds you have. Sometimes you can also use things that are like, I don't know, like a ticket out the door, just to kind of see where they are as well. I like to do little quick quizzes in the Google Classroom also, because if we do that, and we can immediately see some feedback from that as well. There are lots of things we can do to kind of evaluate where they are.
Definitely.
I teach art and photography, and one big thing, somebody mentioned self-evaluations, and especially like with early photography students, there are just so many variables and so many ways a good photograph or an otherwise good photograph can go wrong, that I like rely on them writing about what they do, so that I know that they see that something went wrong, and that's essential for my giving tailored feedback. So I use that kind of thing a lot.
I'm waiting so I don't jump on anybody else. Anybody else want to share? There's lots of stuff going on in the chat, by the way, in case you haven't seen that. Did I just talk over somebody?
No, we do a Bergantz testing, which is a transitional form of testing, and then we work off of that, because I take students in the community. We'll have an evaluation of how they did, if they talk to people, if they ask questions, if they were appropriate, a little different, and then work with academics, work with students a lot one-on-one, so we know where we're at.
Yeah. You're in a little different situation than a lot of people are, because you have the adult transitional students that are, she has really high needs students that are going out into the classroom, into the world for like life training kind of things, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so to answer a couple questions and to comment on a few things. First of all, Clarkston, you said you don't have very much technology. Do you have one like phone or one iPad or anything like that it's available, even if it's your own?
Yeah, we've got 6 Dell laptops for the kids to use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Utica, so I think we're still like the second largest district in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a lack of technology, but yeah, I've got a teacher machine and then 6 laptops.
Okay, so I want to tell you that what Sean Ray said about clickers, have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so this is a great one. You could actually do your whole lesson this week based on clickers as one of your 3 pieces. Clickers is for a low-tech classroom, because you need like a cell phone, a smartphone, or a iPad, and that's all you need. You print out the cards for them. They're QR codes, linking to last week. The students have like A, B, C, D on them. You create your quiz. There are some quiz platforms that will drop right into clickers. We used to use one that was associated with the Holt chemistry book, and the software for that, for like the test software, would drop right into it. So you could even pull quizzes straight out of there just to get started. I do not know if they still have that. This is probably, I've been here 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, probably 6 years ago that they used to do that. But Clickers is basically a low-tech solution. You set up your classrooms, you set up your questions, and the kids get a paper card. A, B, C, and then D would be the whole way over. They hold it up where you can see it. You scan it. Nobody else knows what the kids have for that card if you cut them all the same size. It is on them. And you scan it, and it is amazing. I did a whole classroom of 35 students with my cell phone, and I went like this. You go like this, scan across, scan across, scan across. Green is right, red is wrong. That fast.
How do you spell it?
Plickers, P-L-I-C-K-E-R-S.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen people do it in 2 different ways. They've given the kids the card to keep track of, and I've also seen it where the kids, like the card stays on the side of the desk, and so the student comes in and that's their desk, and you have them based on like a number in your chart or something like that. So you can do it that way when you set up your classrooms. You can either print out cards for everybody, or you can print out one set. Do not laminate them with shiny laminating.
It's harder to read.
I went and paid for that because I was doing a whole seminar thing on it. I had 4 sections of it. I thought I'll just laminate them. And what that meant was none of them would read. If you laminate them, they have to be the matte lamination. You can't do it with the nice shiny stuff. Yeah. It actually is really cool, Derek. Even though you have a lot of high technology, you could even do it as, okay, in 10 minutes, we're going to have a help check. How many of you think you know what you're have going on? How many of you think you need some help? Boom. And then real quick. And what I like is it drops it out into a nice spreadsheet for you. It'll keep track of all their answers. So then if you're having like, all of us have data-driven classrooms. If you're in the classroom anymore, you have to have this data that you collect on the students all the time. That keeps track of it for you. You can look at them and see who had right, who had wrong. And I mean, sometimes kids will have a bad day and they'll turn their card the wrong way and they really knew it. But for the most part, that allows you to see really quick like that, yes or no. Other ones that I like for that are pretty good with even low tech, with six computers in your classroom, you could run Kahoot with groups. Have them tell the answer to each other, run up and hit it. And then it's like the big competition thing, but nobody's really in charge of the answer, so they don't have to. The group owns it, but the individual doesn't have to own it, and it takes a lot of stress out for younger kids that are like really nervous and anxious about it. Kahoot's a really great one there too. I actually had kids that I taught high school chemistry physics for 23 years. Physical science, general chemistry, general physical science, and co-ed or co-taught special ed science. My general kids didn't study. If it went out the door, it didn't come back in. So if they didn't do the homework in the class or do the work in the class, it didn't get done. Their job, they didn't have support at home, whatever. Kahoot was the only thing. My kids went home one night. We played Kahoot. One of them lost. He was really competitive. He went home. He studied. He made his friends study. They came back in the next day, and I said, we're not playing it. We're moving on. You guys didn't study for yesterday. He was like, no, you don't understand. I spent 2 hours last night studying these. He learned vocabulary and learned chemistry symbols. And this was the kid that was like, when am I ever going to need chemistry in my entire life? Every day. And he went home and he studied. And it was crazy. All I had to do was say, we're playing Kahoot, and they would study. So it's really fun. And they have a lot of quizzes that are already made for you. So it's really easy to start with if you don't mind shuffling through a few things real quick. Yeah, Wendy said that Socrative and Quizlet also have some really good ones. Yes. Quizlet is a fantastic one, especially since kids can drop it on their phone if they have one. So anybody else have other ideas that people use?
There's one that, I don't know if it's Quizlet Live, but they assign different teams, like Random Rhino, or I don't know what it is. I think it's Quizlet Live, but it's a very similar thing where they're working together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was someone put it in a staff meeting, but I don't know what it's called.
I've used Quiz Great. The kids in teams, choice questions, they'll be broken into teams of 4, and the right answer is only on one of their computer screens.
That's right. That's the one.
It makes them work together, so it's nice.
Awesome. These are all really great resources. Yeah. The kids, I've not seen Flipgrid used as a Jeopardy type tool, but I bet it could be really easily used for that too. Derek, for you with the other ones that said self-reflection and the music people, Flipgrid might be something really great for you to check out too, because you could have them posting their videos on there. The other thing I like about Flipgrid is that you can have, yes, hey, Easter egg hunt at my house is a full contact sport, so I understand that. Yeah, my baby is 18 and he's 5'11", 250-pound lineman. So that's my baby, and the rest of them are more violent than that. So he's probably my soft one. But Flipgrid is really a great resource for all kinds of different things. I've seen people use it for performance and self-reflection and talking through. So I've seen them this is my photograph, and then I'm going to look into the screen and I'm going to, obviously it's not, I'm going to look into here and I'm going to describe the pieces of it. And I only get 3 minutes, so I have to be really succinct and I have to know what I'm talking about. I've seen kids have 1.5 minutes for their math Flipgrid, and they had to redo it 6 different times to get everything they wanted to say in that 1.5 minutes. So it really makes them practice summarizing. I've seen it used for book reports. I've seen it used for vocabulary lessons, for performance things where they were singing or playing instruments, or talking through a process that they were using for a science lab. I mean, I've seen it used for a pile of different things. Anything else anybody can think of? Okay, the one that I have you using this week is my very favorite, one of my very favorite ones. It's Play Pose It. Quizzer also works the same way. It's like QUIZRRR, I think we'll use it, we'll work for it. And also Ed Puzzle. These are all ones that work with a piece of video. So you take a video, drop it in, add questions to it, and then it's the forced paying attention. Like whenever you have to do like your professional development things, and every 5 minutes they ask you 3 questions to make sure you're really watching. So you can do that with your students as well to make sure that they're watching. You can also use it though, more importantly, to direct their attention to things. You get 5 minutes into the video or 3 minutes into the video. You don't want to make them watch more than 10. You get 3 minutes into the video and you say, in this next piece, really use, I really want you to pay attention to how the organelles are placed inside of the cell. Or I want you to really pay attention to how, with mitosis, look at how the pieces are pulling apart, the strands are pulling apart. Watch that in this next piece. You can target a lot of times what you want them to look at during the video by using these questions, even if you don't have anything you're taking as a quiz. Plus it gives you verification that they actually did it if you want them to do it. Yeah, I love Play Pose It. I wish they wouldn't have. They kill some of the free options, then they bring them back, so just kind of keep watching. If you sign up for emails, Play Pose It and Flipgrid have sent out coupons before. And Powtoons last year gave away like $2 million worth of free educator licenses. So when I find that kind of stuff, I'll shoot it out to everybody. I like Play Pose It too because you can take a 15-minute video and cut it down to 3 minutes if that's all you want. So those are things that I have you looking at this week, as well as designing a rubric, because a lot of people have never actually made themselves a rubric. They've only used ones that people have given them, or they've found somewhere. And so you're looking at a way to do that this time. The other thing we're talking about this week is project-based learning. Do any of you work in a project-based learning school, or have you done project-based learning in your classroom?
I have before. We did it as a gifted project last year. They did a whole bunch of different things. We went through and they had to, the biggest thing that they did is they came up with an event that they had to plan from the very beginning. They had to get the funding, and I mean, it was a bunch of fun. It's a great way for them to learn. At least it was for our children. I enjoyed it because they're doing everything. You're just kind of sitting back and just kind of saying, well, what about this thing? And how about this area? How about this thing? And they formed all these little cool committees and different things. It was a great experience for me. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
What I would say is whenever you're talking about it though, I know what you mean, you get it going in that, but never say that you aren't doing anything with it, because principals get kind of mad and parents get mad.
They do. They do.
What you want to do is that you foreground all of it. You prepare all of it ahead of time, because you really do. You do it all ready. You do all of your work is foregrounding, and then the students are actually there so you can moderate what they're doing. And that's a better way to get called on it.
Yeah, because they look at you like, what are you? But no, I'm like, well, look, now we had to go back. We did have to have that conversation a few times. The lady that worked with me with that project, but it was a lot of work on our behalf. But to facilitate it and watch how things kind of played out, and it makes them tremendous problem solvers, because you'll say, okay, well, this is your roadblock. They'll come out like, well, we got this. I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do? And then just watch them have to think through how to work out those particular problems and come up with a solution that's viable, something we can do, having them to write proposals for organizations from the local area to see if they could give them funding for different things. It was great. They did a whole bunch. Like I said, they did several majors, but the one that was the biggest one, the one that went into them creating a prom at this middle school. And they don't really have a prom, but they were trying to design a prom. They had to make the decorations, find out how much it would cost for funding. It was just a whole bunch of things. But like I said, it's more work, but it's different. I guess it's different, I guess is what I would say.
I think students appreciate it whenever you let them have a voice in what they do and how they do it.
They do.
Does
They do.
anybody else? I see if people are listing over in the chat that they're doing it. Does anyone else have an example that they want to share, or a way that you structure it, or a way that you assess it?
Yeah, I can speak to that. My final project that I do in my advanced digital arts class, and it's very free and very open. I mean, most of what I do is project based, but this is just like, let's take a look at everything that we've learned and what do you feel best? What do you feel like closest to, or what do you think you can communicate best through, or what intrigues you most? So they have to write a proposal, and right there it's tricky. But I mean, I kind of just wanted to say that when I first started doing that, the first time I did it I kind of just did it halfway and gave them a bunch of choices, but still made them pick from it. And that was because at the time I was afraid it was going to come off as I wasn't teaching them. I was just yeah, do whatever. But I quickly found it was nothing like that, and that in fact it was way more work for me, not in a bad way, but I mean, all the hands are up and everyone's got totally different problems. But I mean, it was totally worth it, and I keep doing it that way.
Does anyone have questions for those people that have done project-based learning in their classroom? Things you want to ask about, or questions that you have about starting it in your classroom, ideas for running it?
Yeah, where do you start? What do you do to start it?
I've answered, but I'll let somebody else talk first. Go ahead.
The way we approached the projects that particular time, I didn't notice who was talking just a second ago. Was it Derek?
Josh.
When we did it the first time we did it, what we did is we sat back and we decided about the kinds of, I don't want to say, but I guess broad things that we wanted to discuss it with. It was, we all had our gifted class that we taught, but this was something a little bit separate that we did. It was like a 40-minute class period that they had set aside specifically for this at that particular time last year. And so we just decided from the beginning that there will be these four things, these particular areas that we think we want to push towards them, and let them choose. And that's what we did. Kind of let them choose something from each area. But then we kind of guided them a little bit. Like, for instance, we did this thing called the Global Village at a local college here. And it's where children come in and they represent a particular country. It's not necessarily we represented Scotland, for instance. They give us a person that's a global ambassador that comes from there that tells them a little bit about the country, things like that. When it came to that project, we just said, okay, this is sort of geared towards our social studies. Let's see if we can broaden, focus them a little bit. But like I said, this was the first, we started this in August after some conversation about break back from summer. But the thing is, it does require a tremendous amount of planning on your behalf. It sounds like very simple work at first, but it really isn't, because you have to have an idea and have to have a direction. And with the kids that, that with my experience with them anyway, they'll go off on this tangent and they will all have 60,000 questions at the exact same time, because they do hit these little stumbling blocks in the mix. And it's hard to keep them focused if you don't have something from the beginning. If it were me, I probably would look specific to content, and just see what my content is and just go from there. See what kinds of things you would like for them to explore that would be something outside of your regular class vein, somewhat, not completely related, of course, but something that you thought might be a cool something that you want them to explore a little bit more fully, that would get them to do the application of whatever your content is. That's my suggestion, because that's what it needs to be at the end of it. Like I said, this one wasn't content specific. I'm a language arts teacher. The person who was working with me was a math teacher, but the two of us got this group of children, and it was a huge group of, I think it was 30 of them, that were supposed to be gifted and accelerated students that we worked with to do this. It was not that easy to keep them from infighting about different things. I think I got a better idea, and I'm like, we got to learn. You have to teach a whole bunch of things in the process of doing a project-based class project. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's something you're only doing for a few weeks or like we did for a whole year. They get to a place where they, like I said, you have to teach them how to deal with each other and how to be kind or considerate, at least, of of what other people's opinions are. So, I mean, temper's going to flare a little bit, but like I said, the more you consider it, the more you can relate it to exactly what it is that you do in your content, the better. Sorry, I talked a whole bunch.
That's okay.
Awesome. Well, that was great.
I think that having that, as she said, the overarching problem, what is the big idea you want them to have? And then how picky are you on how they get to that? If you can have a little bit of flexibility with it, it's fairly easy to work with them once you get that started. But I think figuring out the big idea you need them to have, and then the pieces that you need them to have to do it. Yeah. I have a problem with you guys. I have 1 minute left of class before it kicks me off because we are free. So I apologize. If you want to go out when it kicks you off and log right back in on the same link, you can come back and we can talk more, or you can go on your happy way because we're in the process of renewing the license for the department, and I don't have the new license password yet. So here's the problem with dealing with Zoom, because it will kick you off with a group. So once it does, if you would like to come back in, you are welcome to do that. You can just log back in on the same link. And I'm trying to save really quickly the chat so that I can bring it up later in case anybody has questions, because Derek's typing in all kinds of great stuff. Lindsay put in a whole bunch about her multi-genre projects that she uses in her English in classes, right? English, okay, and that kind of thing. So I do have those, because it's gonna, I'm sure it's gonna kick us off here pretty soon, and this was a really good discussion. So I apologize for the inconvenience of that. Whenever it kicks you off, if you want to log back in, we can continue talking, or I will take this as class being done. I will make sure I post the chat. As far as I know, you have access to it through, I saved it, so that way I should be able to post it with the video whenever I'm done. It's been really great to see you guys. This was great. I should have had a whole hour for this one. I like this. Office hours are right next to, so if you do want to come back in and ask a couple questions, you can do that. Or like I said, you can talk to me, email me at any time. So we're waiting now. This is like the it's like the thing